Welcome, Haber, to the World XP podcast. This is episode number 16. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on. Been a fan of yours and some of the other YouTubers, FIFA YouTubers on the scene for quite some time. So it's great to have you on and to be able to kind of explore your career in the industry and what life is like for you. And then just generally, like, we can just, like you said, just shoot the shit. So welcome.
I'm happy to be on, bro. I love doing podcasts. One of my favorite things.
Yeah. Do you listen to a lot of podcasts in your spare time?
Yes. Big fan of Joe Rogan.
Of
I listen to most of his. I listen to a British YouTuber called Jackmate as well.
Mm-hmm.
He does a happy hour podcast, it's called. I listen to him a lot as well because he has a lot of British guests on. But yeah, sure. I listen to every day. I listen to a podcast.
Yeah. Rogan is one of the ones. He was the initial sort of influence, I guess, into why I started this. I was having conversations like this with people generally, and one of my friends was like, "Hey, you should start a podcast. You have good ideas." And so here we are. But which ones? How did you find Rogan? Just through the interweb, or through people just told you about different clips, or?
I don't know. Like it be a mix of friends watching or listening and telling me about it, and YouTube just recommending it as well, just popping up on the homepage here and there. He's so big everywhere now that it's kind of hard not to know of him.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just kind of pops up, especially with big guests as well.
Yeah, for sure. He's had a couple big ones on recently. I don't know if you're super aware of the whole Spotify like censoring or not censoring thing. And then he went, and whether or not they did or not, and then he went on and had 3 guests in a row that Spotify was less than fond of, let's say.
I haven't kept up to date with it. I'm halfway through the Kanye one at the minute.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to that today. But I mean, I've seen the stories about the Spotify, whatever's going on over there. I don't know. I haven't looked into it. I haven't indulged in it. I kind of just listen to podcasts and kind of get on with my life, really.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Probably helps you stay sane.
Yeah.
Have you paid attention, just out of curiosity, have you paid attention much to what's going on in the US, or you kind of stay out of it in general?
It's hard. It's hard not to see it, isn't it? With everything that's happened, to be honest. I mean, this year's been a crazy year, hasn't it? In regards to everything. But yeah, it's hard not to pay attention when it's everywhere. You know, whether it be the Black Lives Matter stuff, whether it be the election stuff. Obviously today, it's either on my Twitter feed or on my news feed every single day. So yeah, I'd say I'm fairly clued up, but I don't. The hard-hitting stories or the controversial ones that I choose usually not to read too much into it, because I don't want to care. For example, about the Trump versus Biden stuff, I don't actually want to care. I just kind of see it. I'll read headlines and things like that and kind of just go on with it after, you know?
Yeah. Real quick, and then we'll move on. But I'm just curious, because you obviously don't live in the United States. So do you have a general sort of feeling that you get from either yourself or your friends about like how they view the US at the moment?
I'd say most British people see it as a bit crazy all over the place. The kind of general consensus over here is just what is going on, you know, but I think
fair.
I think that you guys probably think the same thing sometimes. It just seems like the stories get very they get intensified, I think, for the headlines. So I don't think that America is going crazy, but from an outsider looking in, it looks like it because of the way that they word the stories. It all seems a bit crazy. But again, like I said before, that's 2020 this year, isn't it? It's a bit of a mad year.
Yeah, it's been nuts, that's for sure. Especially with COVID and stuff. You guys are going back into lockdown, aren't you?
Sadly, yes. As of tomorrow, we are back into lockdown.
Was it a spike in cases from reopening?
Yeah, it seems like the spike came from when they reopened the schools, which seems weird because they're not closing the schools again. We're going back into lockdown, but schools are staying open. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
No, that's interesting. I didn't know that you guys had opened the schools. Here, they're still virtual. So we did kind of the opposite of you guys. I know you guys weren't allowing fans into like the Premier League or those games. We are, but you guys reopened your schools and we didn't. It's very odd.
Yeah, I personally don't understand it. I don't get why we're reopening schools. The whole thing doesn't make sense to me. But again, I think we're in a similar boat to you. We don't have any kind of consistency when it comes to who's running our country and what decisions they're making. So, closing everything bar schools makes no sense, because schools are clearly the factor to why the cases have spiked. We have 30 kids in a classroom without masks on. Of course, if one kid has COVID, all 30 are going to get it,
Yeah, definitely.
But, so it's never made sense. I've always been an advocate. I think online schooling at the moment is probably the best solution to kind of fight the COVID-19 stuff. But
it's working okay over here. It depends on the teacher's age. The younger ones are coping okay because they grew up with the technology, but the older ones, not so much. They're struggling some.
Yeah, I can imagine so.
Yeah, so it's a little bit difficult, but hopefully we'll get through it here and there. So for you, you've made a name for yourself in the FIFA industry, I guess you could say. You have a platform with, last time I checked, I think 150,000 subs on YouTube. Is that accurate?
That is, yeah.
That is, so like when you sit back and think about it, especially for our channel, just starting out, we have like 37. To grow from, because we were talking beforehand, you just put up like trick shots on Call of Duty or whatever, and you were just posting, and then all of a sudden it kind of grew and grew and grew into this. What's that journey been like for you, from just kind of fooling around on Call of Duty to where you are now, where you're streaming, you got a schedule, and you got all this other stuff going on?
It's a weird one. It goes very quickly, and then when you get to a point where it's become a full-time job and it's a full-time commitment, then you look back and you think to yourself, how did it even come around? I don't think there was ever a day where the day before it was a hobby and the day after it was a job. I don't think there was ever that switch over period. It just kind of transitioned gradually into that. But it's been a very up and down journey, I think, is definitely the way to describe it. I think YouTube in general, going through YouTube ranks, it's definitely up and down. It definitely has its peaks and has its disadvantages. And I think that I think most people have the same kind of journey when they go through it, in the sense that you can never, like, you don't know what's happened the day after, and it kind of just happens. Everything kind of just falls onto your plate at once, and you're kind of just going through it as if you're I don't know, you're going for a normal job, I guess. I don't know, you kind of just climb the ranks, but it's probably just a bit quicker than a normal job. You don't get promoted the day after. But yeah, there was never a time where I realized one day, okay, well, tomorrow this becomes a full-time job. I'd only really worked one job, so it was never a case of, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to go and pursue YouTube full-time. It kind of just happened as it happened. Overall, yeah, the journey, it's a weird one to describe, especially when I first ever started posting on YouTube, I think I was about 10 years old, and to kind of grow up doing it. When I started the ItsHaber channel and started posting FIFA content, I think it was around 15, 16 years old. So I had no idea what I was doing, to be honest. And here we are.
Yeah.
6 years later.
Did you just kind of see some other videos and you were like, oh, I could do that. That looks like fun. And then you just started from there?
Kind of. When I was in school, all my friends play FIFA. And I always played the most FIFA out of everyone else. So people would come to me in school and be like, hey, who should I buy? Who's the best player you've used? How do I finish off this squad? How am I getting better at the game? So I would just give people advice in my school, like my friends. I'd just be like, okay, buy this guy or try this formation. And over time, I realized that's kind of just what other YouTubers are doing on YouTube. They're making the videos teaching people how to play the game and the best tactics and the best players to use. And I was like, I might as well give it a go. Post some videos, try it out, and see how it goes. Because I was watching videos every day anyway. I was watching the likes of, as you mentioned, Nepenthes and AJ3 and people like that. So I just decided to kind of give it a go, and it seems to be working out at the minute.
Yeah, it does seem that way, doesn't it? So when you're describing your journey, you talked a lot about ups and downs. What did you mean by that?
So a couple of years ago, I went from FIFA to trying to be a Fortnite channel. When Fortnite became so popular, became very good at the game. So I thought I would try and do the same thing I did with FIFA, but with Fortnite. Didn't work out and almost pretty much killed off my channel completely. I got very lucky that I got a second wind with FIFA and managed to kind of ride that wave after. But yeah, trying to become a Fortnite channel, almost the end of it. Almost killed the channel completely.
Yeah. So is that something like you make that decision? Did you do that because you liked Fortnite better than FIFA, or were you trying to ride the wave of Fortnite, or just trends, or kind of how does that, if you're sitting there and you make the decision like, hey, I'm going to try being a Fortnite YouTuber now, like what sort of information or thoughts go into a decision like that?
It was kind of it was a mixture really. Definitely wanted to try and ride the hype. The hype was unbelievable at the time. It was like we'd never seen before. Alongside the fact that I was massively enjoying Fortnite more than FIFA, and I was really good at the game, and I thought that those three factors would theoretically propel a channel that's just starting out. I was seeing the likes of Ninja and people like that exploding because of the game, and I thought, obviously I'm never going to get on that scale, but if I can provide the same level of content I was providing on FIFA, maybe with the growth of the game, the growth of the channel will come. And about 6 to 8 weeks down the line, it just didn't happen. It didn't take off. I had one video that did really well, and then the rest of them just did not take off. And I kind of found myself at a loss for content. I found myself at a loss for the channel. I was the views just weren't there, and that's when I realized that my thing was FIFA on YouTube, and you can't build an audience on FIFA and then just switch to Fortnite and expect it to work. So I decided then, after doing Fortnite for so long, I decided then to switch back to FIFA. But to answer your question, I don't think there was ever a thought process that went into it that I thought, okay, I'm going to switch now. It was almost like how growth works on YouTube, where it kind of just happened. I posted a Fortnite video randomly and kind of just then posted another one, then another one. It was never, I never intentionally was going to just quit FIFA for Fortnite, but that kind of just happened. And then I realized that it just wasn't working. So that's when I decided to stop doing Fortnite on the channel and just go straight back to FIFA.
Yeah, I feel like some of that has to do with you enjoying the game that you're playing as well. Like, you don't want to be producing content for a game you're not enjoying. I hear that all the time towards the back end of the FIFA game cycle, where people are like, oh, it's boring. I don't even like playing this game anymore. Let me post PUBG or H1Z1 or whatever. And so if you're not enjoying it, then it's almost like, what's the point? A little bit. Have you felt that?
Yeah, I definitely, but I don't know if that's the actual game itself, or that's from coming from playing a game for 8 hours a day for a year. When you're streaming FIFA every day for the entire game cycle, when the off period of FIFA happens in the summer, I think that's when people realize that they're just fatigued from the game and they're exhausted the game, and when they try a different game and it's so fresh and new, it will feel like FIFA has been the worst thing in the world that you've played for the last year. But I think in the sort of this time and in the next few months when FIFA is booming, I think people enjoy it. I don't think people hate FIFA. I just think that when you get to a point where you've played it for the last year, you want anything new to come onto your plate to play,
Yeah, definitely. That makes sense. I get that way with FIFA as well. Obviously, I don't play as much as you, but there are definitely times where I'm like, I'm going to play 2K this weekend instead of playing Weekend League and getting upset with the game for whatever cheese happens. But I was talking to one of my friends from college. So I've only played Ultimate Team last year and this year. But my friend had an account, and we would like kind of share the account or whatever, going back to 14 or 15. And then when Foot Champs was introduced, it seemed like there was a shift in the community and kind of how EA would interact with the community. I remember in 15 when they had the tournaments mode, we would just have fun and play tournaments, and if we lost, we lost, and it was whatever. But now it's like if you lose a game in champs, it feels like you take the hit so much harder. Have you noticed that that sort of shift as well? And do you know sort of why EA wants to do that, or do you have any thoughts on that?
There's definitely been a shift. I do agree. I think there has been a shift. I think that with the introduction of Foot Champions, they've created this toxic environment now where the rank you achieve defines you as a FIFA player, and every loss that you then take feels like a personal attack because you're not getting closer to achieving that rank that then defines you as a FIFA player. So I think that unfortunately the introduction of competitive game modes has forced players to take the game way more personally, and it has created a community that is way more toxic because of that, because everyone thinks that, oh, if I hit elite this weekend, then I'm going to get more respect as a player. And it doesn't make sense because it doesn't mean shit at the end of the day. It doesn't matter if you're an elite player or you're a silver player. Like, who actually cares at the end of the day? But unfortunately, it has created this environment. And I don't know if EA wanted to create it, but we're at a stage now where they can't go back. They unfortunately, it's impossible. That if they take out rewards from any game mode, no one's going to play it. And if they remove the competitive nature of the game, it will unfortunately make the game incredibly boring after it's kind of become this massive competitive sweat fest, really. So I don't think that they can take it back. I don't think they meant it to get to here, but it has. And, they do need to take responsibility for that.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly for sure. The community itself is we were put in a position where, like you said, if rewards aren't there anymore, nobody wants to play. And I'm sure after games in champs, you've received all sorts of nasty messages from people before. But it just doesn't create, like, you want a game like that to be fun. And you definitely hear people like saying, no, it's not fun. Like on Nepo's Road to Glory last year, he was like, I'm going to play champs every weekend. And I think he played like 3 times.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, I just don't want to play anymore. And Tex, I think either last year or 2 years ago at whatever event he was at, and after he won, he was like, nobody likes this game anymore. It's interesting because you hear everybody say those things, and then yet at the end of the day, as soon as EA releases something new, everybody's like, oh, look at this new card, I'm going to play for another 8 hours. It's this weird sort of love-hate relationship, I think, that the community has with EA. And obviously I only see it from the standpoint of watching you guys create the content, but for you as a content creator, do you feel that as well? Or is some of it just like, I need to get a video out today and people are asking me about this card, so I'm going to do it?
There is definitely an element of just trying to get a video out and just trying to pump out some content. But I think even for content creators, I think there's a level of addiction that goes into this game. And as much as I'd like to try and pinpoint what that addiction is, I don't really know. Because I'm the same. One day I'll be absolutely sick and tired of FIFA. The next day, a brand new shiny card comes out and I want to go and play 30 games a weekend league. It doesn't make sense, but then again, addiction doesn't. I think that there is an addicting nature to FIFA that brings people back and makes people want to play constantly more. Maybe that's the idea of upgrading the team or achieving a better reward, or maybe that's packs that are addicting. I'm not entirely sure, but there is this weird pull that brings people back, and it does the same thing for me.
Yeah.
So I don't know how they've done it, but EA have somehow roped everyone in, and they continue to do it every single time.
Yeah, it's a little bit scary, honestly. But I think the packs definitely are one of it. I think the gambling sort of aspect to that, and people are addicted to gambling. It's a pretty self-explanatory one. But I think part of it is the fear of missing out. And then if you don't get the rewards that week, that your team is now all of a sudden falling behind the power curve, so to speak. And I think that's a big part of it, because you see players get released and you're like, you or whoever's doing a player review will be like, oh, they're behind the power curve or they're past the power curve or whatever. I think that could be a part of it as well. Like, you don't want to miss out on whatever that player is, even though at the end of the game you go through the stats and you're like, well, I played with this player for 4 games. And it's like, what was even the point? But they still have created this sort of cycle that you feel like you need to get the player, like, because you might need it later. They've done that with objectives as well. Like last year with the first owner objectives, they created this so like people were like, yeah, I need to get this player.
Yeah, I think that they definitely create that kind of illusion that makes you think that it's a necessity to obtain the players. I think there might be a level of, I think a lot of people think that, like the idea that they're building something, they're building their club, and it's like they're building the foundations and they're constantly improving the club. And whilst I like that, and I think that's quite an innocent way to look at it, I do think that when it boils down to it, I just think that EA have done a good job of making people feel like they need to come back to the game, and they need, because it's almost like their club is a plant and they need to come and water it every day. They need to spend their hour or 2 hours on the game every day. They need to play their 30 games a weekend league a weekend. And if they don't, like you said, the idea of missing out or the idea that they've not put in the time to grow their club as if they should have this week. And when you really kind of uncover the shell, no one needs to spend any time on the game. It's literally just a game, and it's just a foot club. And if you spend a week off the game and you enjoy that week, you don't need to go back and put 2 more weeks into it of hard grinding to get back to where you were. You really don't. But again, EA have created this ecosystem and this entity where if you don't build on it every single day, you do have that fear of missing out, and you do have the fear that you've not put your 2 hours a day into the game. It's a very strange ecosystem they've built, but it works so well for them, for selling games and for selling packs and for selling everything, really.
It does. I have one thought on the need to like water the plant, like you said. Do you think that you guys as content creators have just like a little bit to do with that? I feel like people watch you guys and they say, oh, Haber has all of these things, let me go do something like that. Maybe not for the older people that watch you, but for the younger ones. Do you think there's do you think that holds any water or not so much?
I think there is definitely influence from people like myself or the content creators when it comes to the content we create. I think that things, for example, pack openings, I think everyone wants to be able to open unlimited packs on the game, right? And everyone wants to be able to use the full icon squads and the best squads possible. And it's not a realistic or achievable goal for 99.9% of players that play the game. So
right.
I think that it's almost the glamorous second side of the game, watching someone like myself rip open £1,000 of packs because they know they can't do it, but they want to see what it's like. And I think that also does encourage players to want to do it even more. And the people that can afford to do it, or the people that can achieve that goal, it may encourage them to pursue it, which I think then puts a burden of the need to be honest about what it's like to achieve that certain goal and to put a ton of money into the game. So I'll show, for example, the bad packs. I'll show a weekend of weekend league rewards where we get absolutely nothing. It's a terrible weekend. So, but I do think that there is definitely encouragement that comes from content creators, and how we play the game. But I also think that I don't think it's just content creators, but I think it's the community in general that have created this circle of almost respect. Like if you're a Road to Glory, for example, and you're zero money spent and you have a great team, you earn this strange subsufficient medal from people that where you got this badge of honor that you've created something by spending zero money on a game, or if you achieve this rank without spending it, you gain this respect. So I think that whilst there is definitely encouragement that comes from content creators, I think there is also the weird circle jerk within the community where they love to give out respect to people for achieving what other content creators do without spending money or without spending the hours on the game, you know? So
Yeah.
I think it works hand in hand, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's weird because the comments also, like the comment sections and the viewers also have a part to play in, like you said, the road to glory with no money spent. Because as soon as if you were doing that and you put £5 or $5 on the game, the comments would be, it's not for
Yeah.
or it's not like free to play anymore. Like this doesn't even count. It's all invalid, even though realistically that £5 got you one premium gold pack in which you probably packed someone worth 600 coins.
Yeah.
And so it's a weird sort of like the comments versus the content creators and then EA itself. But do you feel any sort of responsibility that when you're creating content to make sure it's like, hey, don't spend this much money on the game if you can't afford it, or is that just kind of like who you are as a person that you're going to show them like the bad stuff as well?
There is definitely a level of responsibility that you take on as a content creator. I think the biggest issue is that EA have created a game that is pay to win, and it's a game where microtransactions are so prevalent and make such an amount of money for them that they advertise it. So there's almost a level of I don't even need to say it sometimes because people say it for me, and people do the work for me in the sense that they expose EA for shady advertisements, and they point out how terribly unworth it packs are. But you know, if I have somebody watching a stream and I go and spend 36,000 FIFA points, and you know they're thinking, oh, they might put in chat, you know, should I open a 100k pack? I'll always tell them no, because ultimately it isn't worth it regardless. But I also do remind people that they can kind of do what they want with their money. You know, if you can afford it and you have the spare cash, you have $80 to spend on the game, and that's what you want to do, don't feel the pressure or the hatred from other people for spending on the game, because they don't. And I think that whilst as a content creator, I am responsible for making it clear that if you can't afford it and you don't have the money, or you're trying to use your parents' credit card or something, definitely do not.
Yeah.
I also feel like the responsibility to remind people not to be rude, negative, or toxic to people that are choosing to spend their money on what they want to spend it on, because ultimately both are wrong, in my opinion. Judging someone for spending some money on FIFA in their spare time, I think it's unfair on that person just because they want to play with their favorite player, you know?
Yeah.
And at the same time, someone that's maybe in debt or has an addiction to gambling already and is thinking about spending money on FIFA points, it's absolutely my responsibility to make sure they don't, or to point them in the right direction anyway.
Does that weigh on you at all, that responsibility? Are you ever like, oh, I should have said this thing differently, or in terms of this, or you kind of have, I don't want to say come to peace, but you understand like what you're doing, and you know that you're consistent throughout your videos and the message that you're sending out in terms of this issue specifically?
I would say I don't lose sleep over it. If there, I don't. Maybe I don't advocate enough at times that you know, for the people that obviously can't afford it, or for the people that spending money on the game would be have a negative impact on their livelihood. You know, I maybe don't advocate enough to stay away. And of course, I know that spending a lot on videos and stuff is absolutely going to be an encouragement to some. Any opportunity given will let people know that it's absolutely not worth it. And especially on the streams, the YouTube videos, not so much. The YouTube videos, I think the content on YouTube, the content that does well on YouTube is glamourifying the packs, you know, showing getting a great icon or something. That's what brings in views. But on a Twitch stream, something that's way more raw, that's very personal, and something that's just more me, I will say at least once a stream, if I open packs, to not do it. You know,
Yeah.
I'll let people know it's definitely not worth it. It's a difficult one though, because I also feel that at times, if I'm going to shed a negative light on the like, if I was to go around telling people how terrible packs are, you know, don't spend money on packs, don't open packs at all, I also would expect those people to then stop watching my content. So it's
Sure.
it's
It's
a
a
hard,
balance.
yeah, it's kind of a battle. It's kind of a moral versus ethical battle, really. You know, should I tell people every day on Twitter not to open packs, to never give EA money, they're the devil, and then possibly risk losing them as viewers? Or do I just wait until somebody asks me the question before I answer it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a tough one. I can see how that's a tough one. I want to switch a little bit, just to how your kind of daily, or like your routine now that you've become a full-time YouTuber slash streamer. But first, do you enjoy making YouTube videos or streaming more?
Ooh, that is a tough question. I enjoy the interaction I get on Twitch more. It's more of a personal conversation, but I also enjoy the fact that on YouTube you don't have to put in 6 or 7 hours a day to create content that's enjoyable for people. You know, on YouTube, I can crack out a video in an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah.
Whereas on Twitch, you know, if I want to try and connect with everyone, I'm doing a 6-hour shift sometimes, or a 3-hour shift sometimes. So I think that they both have their advantages. I don't know if I prefer either one of them. I think they're both great. And I think that depending on the day, you know, one day I might think that I'm enjoying Twitch more, and the other day enjoying YouTube more. It's kind of a battle between them.
Yeah, that makes sense. So when when you stream, was it kind of going off like the speaking to the camera, almost like you're speaking to nobody, sort of aspect of YouTube? Was that difficult for you to get used to, like commentating on your videos, or doing live commentary, or like when you're playing, being able to talk to the chat or anything like that? Because I know when I'm playing, I would have to get used to being able to talk to somebody whilst playing at the same time. Like right now, if I was playing a weekend league game, there's no way I would be able to live comment for a YouTube video at all.
I would say it's not so hard. The adjustment period is not that hard for being able to talk whilst you play. I think the hardest part is trying to stop the poor parts of my personality from coming through. I think everyone has parts of themselves that aren't exactly camera friendly.
Desirable, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, I will get frustrated at games very easily and become a toxic mess after 3 losses in a row. And that is exactly what I don't want to put onto Twitch, but sometimes can't help it. And I think the adjustment period of weeding out the negative aspects of my personality were the hardest part for streaming. And to be honest, a part that I still haven't mastered. I still let out I'll still be toxic or salty after a loss, or I'll still play on tilt or stream on tilt after, you know, something happens in the game. So they're definitely the hardest part. I don't think it's too hard transitioning into just to be able to commentate live for a longer period of time over games, for example, because it's more so you kind of just be yourself on Twitch.
Yeah.
Whereas on YouTube, it's kind of 20 minutes of putting on a personality for the camera, and then you're editing it, and you kind of just sit back in your chair and you're not projecting your voice anymore, and you're done with it. So with Twitch, it's almost just the same as how it is now, where I'm literally just talking like a normal human being, and I'm not in YouTuber mode. But that also means that I will let through those negative parts of the personality at times.
Have you noticed in your sort of battle to control those, we'll say, uncamera friendly parts of your personality, have you noticed that translate to life outside of the industry when you're just with your friends or your family or that sort of thing? Have you noticed over the years that you've been able to like stay cool-headed more in a situation where you might have, like 5 years ago, you would have blown up at something? Or have you noticed that at all?
to be honest, it's never something that's really came through with day-to-day life. On a game, for example, when I'm streaming, it's kind of something where as I'm sat on my own in a room and seeing a chat go by and, seeing the odd person put something stupid that may put me on tilt whilst I'm playing a game or something, that they're the only things really that will cause, say, for example, if I get toxic at a video game or if I get, if something puts me on tilt. I never really experienced those in day-to-day life because you don't have people come up to you in the street saying the dumb shit they say online. People can hide behind a dumb profile picture and, they can say something stupid online and then not really feel the consequences. So it's not really something I've had to deal with personally. It's only when I started becoming a content creator that you really kind of see the stupid side of the internet and the stupid side of how people can be. And I think that's definitely one of the factors that lead to looking like an arsehole online yourself as a creator,
Yeah, definitely. I had probably a couple months ago, maybe a year ago almost, I had deleted Twitter off my phone just entirely because I was tired of it. And I felt definitely a lot better. I have it back now and I've been able to sort of put a self time limit on it. Do you ever feel those days where you kind of need to just like detach from all of it? Like, and if you do you have a video planned from beforehand, like scheduled for that day, or how does that work for you?
I definitely have those days. To be honest, I would say I have at least one moment a day where I read something, I'm just thinking, what the fuck? Why am I still on this platform? But like a lot of the times I will take a half day off or a day off if it's really something that's getting to me. Like they're truly the worst times have actually been just during the lockdown. The first lockdown in the UK sent people absolutely crazy, and people were getting so angry because they're locked inside all day that they were taking out their rage on people online, and they were going after people like myself and other content creators, or they were just going after each other, and people became psychopaths on Twitter and places like that. So I definitely felt more to the point where I was sick of it during lockdown, because it was hard to go online and read negative message after negative message constantly every single day. But when I do that, I've developed a thick skin now, so it doesn't affect me as much. But yeah, there'll be times where I close Twitter, or I'll close it on my phone. I'll turn my phone off, and usually I'll just go watch a movie, or I'll go to the gym, or I'll do something that takes my mind off of social media, and I'll come back feeling more refreshed and back to create content, or I'll just take a day off completely and just kind of do my own thing for the day.
Yeah, that's good that you have the mental sort of awareness to know when you need to do that and kind of what works for you to get out of that negative funk, let's say. But from a day-to-day sort of grind for you, what does that look like for you? Like you get up in the morning and or you get up in the middle of the night, as Curbs has been doing. But what's that look like for you?
It honestly, it depends on the week. At the moment, so the last few days, I'll get up around 6:30, 7 in the morning. I will go for a walk, usually around a mile or two, just around my local area, get some fresh air and get some steps in. And then I'll get home, watch a couple episodes of something on Netflix, and play a video game whilst I eat some breakfast. I play a bit of League of Legends nowadays in my free time, so I'll play some of that whilst I'm watching something on Netflix and have some breakfast. Then I'll grab a shower and stream in the morning. I'll then probably end the stream in the afternoon, get some lunch, and either make the video for the evening or have some free time. Sometimes I'll go to the gym, or I'll just spend it, in the room, just kind of chilling. And then I'll probably go live again in the evening time, see what EA drop at 6 p.m. Make a video on that, and then I've got the night to myself again to play games, or to either if I go to the gym at the night time, or to do whatever really.
Sure. Do you enjoy having the ability to make your own schedule, like instead of being like when you were in school, you had a very set, or like your first job that you mentioned, you had a set, like come work from this time to this time? Do you enjoy that more?
It honestly, yes and no. I very much miss having a set routine because I think it gives a lot of discipline to the lifestyle that you live.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a big fan of setting a routine and living by the same routine every day because I like the positive kind of mental effects it has on you because you know what you're doing every day and you know where you have to be. But I also would not be able to go back to a job where I have to get up at the exact same time every day and I have to be here at the exact same time because I've got to a point now where, you know, if I'm feeling tired, I'll go back to bed for half an hour, or if you know, I can delay doing this for 20 minutes if I'm doing something, you know, like having the freedom to be able to change plans is amazing. But also, yeah, I do like having a routine, just because I like kind of knowing what I'm doing every day.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, that was sort of one of the things that when lockdown first started, when they didn't have to, their routines were changed. I think obviously besides the fact that they're all locked inside, I think that was one of the big things that really threw people off, at least initially. But I know, like, working from home now, I'm able to kind of do the same thing that you are. Like if I know I don't have meetings, I'm able to go to the gym or go to training or something like that, or shift stuff around. So I definitely enjoy it more as well. Because if I'm sitting in my office and I have a slow day, I'm just sitting there doing nothing. But now I'm able to go off and do other things like this podcast, for instance. But yeah, man, I think it takes a certain type of person to really thrive in an environment where you are totally like you have the total freedom to do kind of whatever you want, and you have to have the discipline to continue to make sure that you have a livelihood in both of our cases. So on to real life football. You're Manchester United. Actually, before we get there, I saw on Twitter, I think you posted something that you've been at the gym a lot recently and you've lost a bunch of weight. Is that
Yes, yeah.
that true?
Been on a fitness grind recently, yeah.
So first of all, congratulations. But second of all, how has that journey been for you?
Not as hard as people make out and people say it is, to be completely honest and almost brutally honest, really. A lot of people don't take those steps because either they think it's a lot of work or they don't know how to start. And I think that one thing I've really kind of learned is that it honestly isn't that hard. I'm not out there running 10 miles a day and training like an athlete and eating, you know, a slice of bread every day. And that, you know, like I'm still eating normally as I did. I'm just eating the right foods. You know, I'm still, I feel full every day and I don't go to bed hungry, you know, I'm not, you know, working myself into an early grave in the gym or anything like that. Like I'm doing workouts, but I'm feeling good. I'm not feeling tired after it. So it honestly has been a lot easier than I thought. It's probably been one of the best things I've ever done because the physical and mental kind of effects that it has, fantastic. I'd recommend it to anyone. It also did help that my friend who is also my coach at the moment is just he seems to know everything about everything when it comes to fitness. Like he's doing it in university and he's absolutely crazy when it comes to it. He's dedicated his entire life to training and bodybuilding and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's been one of the best things I've ever done. And if there's anyone listening that wants to get into it, honestly, it's not hard. It really isn't.
What changes did you make to your lifestyle?
I stopped having takeaways and fast food. That was definitely the biggest one. The problem is all the food that's the best tasting food is terrible for you.
Yeah.
That's how they get you. So it was mainly kind of figuring out what foods taste good that have a good macro split and that are also low in calories. That was the main one. And then it was also just getting the energy and the time to go to the gym, you know, and not putting it off and getting out and, you know, getting a walk in, getting some steps in. That was the main kind of lifestyle change was stopping being lazy. And I'll still be lazy every day, but
yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's that weird feeling that there'll be times where I think, and I still get it. I imagine you'll get it as well, where you're sat in your chair and you couldn't imagine getting up and going to the gym. Like you feel tired and you've had a long day and you could not imagine like going out and walking 5,000 steps. But from going to not being able to imagine to doing it to actually doing it and taking that step to actually get up and go and do it is probably been the best part about it. And it really is life-changing, to be honest.
Yeah. I think diet is the biggest, is so much more than the exercise is. You can exercise all you want, but if you still eat like crap, you're going to gain the weight and you're going to be unhealthy. I had a similar, maybe not as much because I've been playing football or soccer my whole life. But in college or university, the food is not great and you go out and you drink every weekend. And so I had put on some weight, and once I cut out some of that food, the weight just came off. I noticed that I was feeling like I had a lot more energy and it was easier to get up in the morning and go do things. I don't know if you've also noticed that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the main thing is, replacing, for example, instead of having KFC, cook some chicken breast, and have it with I'll have a meal that's like 500 calories that is 3 times as much food as 500 calories of McDonald's would be. So like that's been the main thing, just mixing a protein source with a carb source and having some proper food as opposed to getting a pizza or to eating some trashy food that is just absolutely terrible for you. And 2 or 3 days of eating clean, you literally feel clean. Your body feels clean. It feels like you're putting good stuff into your body. You're actually fueling yourself. So, and it helps definitely with energy, 100%.
Yeah.
The energy, you have way more energy every single day.
The other thing I've noticed as well is I've been eating like you said, like the chicken and like proper food for long enough now that when I go back and I eat something that's not like fast food, my body is like, what did you just put into me right now? Yeah. Get it out. And I feel horrible for like the next like couple hours or day or so. And it kind of just, your body's telling you like all the stuff that you were eating before, like not good at all. But on to real life football. Your Manchester United has had a rough, 4 or 5 days?
4 or 5 years, more like.
4 or 5 years, yeah, that's true. Since Sir Alex left, really. What is so when I watch United play, like when I watch them, who did you guys? Leipzig. When I watched you play against Leipzig, and then versus like the game against Spurs a couple weeks ago, it's like there's 2 totally different teams, even though it's the same players, because you watch like Rashford and Martial and Greenwood and you're like, wow, they're really good. And then the next game when they don't score, you're like, what happened to them? Like, I would assume you get that feeling as well, but what's your sort of take on the status of the club at the moment?
I would say that it has to be the most confusing time to be a Man United fan ever. I don't get it. I don't understand how we've gone from, we start the season with 2 terrible losses. We then go and beat PSG away, which is phenomenal. Great for it. It was a dominating performance as well. Like we actually looked like the better team. We come back and we lose 6-1 to Spurs. We then go and beat Newcastle 4-1, another dominating performance that I actually thought we'd lose. We go on to beat Leipzig 5-0, and then we get trashed by Arsenal and we can't beat Başakşehir. And it makes no sense because, as you say, it is the same players and somewhat the same system, the same tactics, and how they work one day and don't work the next, I don't know. I don't know. I don't understand Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I don't understand his thought processes. I'm sure you'll agree that Donny van de Beek has to be one of the best players that we have at the club right now in terms of how he plays on the pitch.
Agreed. Yeah, I love
how
him.
He gets brought off after 45, 50 minutes, or how he doesn't even get to play in the games. It baffles me. I have no idea. I have no idea how we don't invest in defenders every year. It just is a confusing time.
Well, I mean, you did invest in Harry Maguire for quite a sum of money, and what's weird about him is when I watch him play, he has moments where I'm like, wow, he's really worth at least close to the price tag, and then he has other moments where I'm like, what is he doing? And you probably watch way closer than I do, but what is your? So I haven't paid much attention to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, but what is your take on him? Do you think he just is flipping things around and trying different things, or do you think the players aren't responding to him, or do you think there's something else going on, or like what do you think?
If I had to put one thing down as to what he isn't at the club, I don't think that he's got the fear factor that Alex Ferguson had. And I don't think any manager has since then. We had it was a different time. The players genuinely feared the man. You didn't cross Alex Ferguson. You played 110% every game. Otherwise, you feared what he'd do to you. And I just don't think the likes of Paul Pogba are going into the dressing room scared of little Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. You know, they're not scared of what he's going to do. They know that the higher ups at the club are going to overrule him. You know, Paul Pogba was never going to sit out for 5 games in a row. It's not going to happen. You know, that's never happening, because no matter what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer thinks, the Glazers are going to tell him to play Paul Pogba or he's gone. So I think that until we can get a stone cold certified manager that the players fear, that the board backs, I don't think we stand a chance in improving. And I don't blame Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I just don't think that he has. I think the odds are stacked against him. I don't think that he has the ability to turn that club into anything, because he's not in charge. He might be the manager, but we all know he's not in charge, and we all know he's not making the decisions. You know, it's the board that are making the decisions, and he's just kind of being the person that everyone blames. So it's a tough one. But I don't think that anytime soon we're going to see any change with this club, or how we play football, or where we finish in the table. I just think we're doomed until the Glazers sell the club, really. I think we're doomed until then.
Yeah, that must be tough, because you're kind of just sitting there hoping that one day they sell the club. It almost makes, I feel like you would almost be happy then that you didn't spend the money on Jadon Sancho if the club is still in the predicament that it's in. Like, I don't think having Sancho would turn you guys from where you are now into title, like to catching Liverpool, for instance.
No, I agree. No one player will do that. I think that if we want to turn our club from every other season we finish in top 4 to a club that is battling for the title, it would require a new board, a new manager, and I would say half a new team, maybe even 8 or 9 new players in the team that are who the manager thinks would work for the system. Like, you look at Jurgen Klopp, and they didn't throw him $500 million to buy a new team, but over the 3 or 4 years that he was growing as a manager and growing the club, he was every summer buying 2 or 3 new players that fit his system. You know, they bought him Van Dijk and Salah, and then they buy him Mane and Firmino, and he's gradually building a team that fits the system that he knows will win him games and win him titles. And to be fair to him, he's gone and smashed it, and he's got a philosophy where, Liverpool players want to play for him. I don't think that we have the same thing in Man United. I don't think there's a single player that thinks that they want to impress Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. But you look at Klopp and you see the relationship he has with the Salah, the Mane, Van Dijk. They all love him. They all want to play for him. They want to get results for him, and they want him to be happy. And I don't think that we get that in the current position we're in. I don't think we ever get that kind of relationship from player to manager, and it sucks, but it's true.
Yeah, definitely. Klopp was the same way at Dortmund. I'm a Dortmund fan, so I've been following Klopp for quite some time. He was the same way at Dortmund, even when Götze was young and Kago was there, and Lewandowski was there, Hummels when he was younger, and they made that run to the Champions League final. They were all the same, and you on that team on paper, you wouldn't really say should have been there at the time, but he knew the system. He had the players that he wanted for his system, and he's transferred that to Liverpool with a bigger budget. And you look at the players he's brought in at Liverpool, like Firmino and Mane. He brought them in on I think Mane was like 35 mil or something like that, and Firmino 25 or 30 mil. And you look at them now, and they're worth like 80, 90, 100 million. And it's based on their improvement as a team and his ability to get the best out of his players. And I don't know that there's a lot of managers in the world like him, to be honest.
No, I'd say he's probably the world's best at the minute. I think that there's always been that debate between him and Pep, but I would say Pep's always gone to a complete team, or at least from my point of view, I'd say Pep walks into a team that is pretty much completed, and if it's not, then he gets the huge amount of money he needs to complete the team. Whereas Klopp has built that team from the ground up. He didn't start with Van Dijk. He didn't, and when he bought Van Dijk wasn't Van Dijk. He was the great Dutch centre back from Southampton. But I would say that when Liverpool bought Van Dijk, I would say that he was at the same level then that Ake is now, having just gone to City. In a few years, Ake could become great, but in a couple of years, Van Dijk became the best centre back in the entire world. Ballon d'Or contender and Player of the Year winner and things like that. So it's one of those where he has built that from the ground up, whereas Pep kind of walks into that already built system. So yeah, I'd say Klopp's probably best manager in the world. I don't think that there is many that can recreate that, and he's probably going to be a one in a 10-year, 20-year period. I don't think we see another success story like that for a while. As much as I wish it was only going to Solskjaer, it's not going to be.
Yeah. 1 sec, let me plug my laptop in. So do you have on your wish list, if you had somebody that was going to come in to United and be the manager, Klopp, not including Klopp, as I'm sure he's going to, the Liverpool United rivalry, and I'm sure he's quite happy where he is. But do you have somebody in that you would want to take that job?
I like Simeone. I think that he is a really good manager, and he'd definitely be one that I would like to be considered. I like the guy at Leipzig. I forget his name now.
Nagelsmann.
That's the guy. Yeah, I like him. I think that he's got a good style. But I would genuinely like to see Ole Gunnar Solskjaer have another year or two at the club with actual backing, because we've gone through 5 managers in 6 years, and it's frustrating. I actually wish we'd have kept hold of Mourinho when we had him, because he got a second place in his second year, and whilst he didn't have a great third year, he never got the backing from the club or even the players. And I'd like to have seen a scenario play out where Mourinho stays for an extra year or two. He gets given that faith, and he tries to turn the club into the club of old, because I know he's definitely capable of doing it. He's one of the best managers that there's been, and he's proven himself time and time again. So, I would love to see a top tier manager come to the club, but also I'm so sick of this cycle where we get a manager, they do okay, they don't get backed, they have a poor season, they're sacked again. So it's almost bittersweet at the thought of a new manager and even one of the greats coming to the club,
Yeah, that makes sense. If my club was in that sort of cycle of managers all the time, I wouldn't be particularly happy with that either. So I feel like you can't win like that, because you're always changing tactics and systems, and especially once you get up to playing that level of football, if you have one person miss the assignment, the whole team is sunk. And sometimes when you watch, you can point it out who it was, Shaw missed that run or that mark, or Pogba didn't track back, which happens way too often. But yeah, so I think, have you watched the Tottenham Hotspur documentary on Amazon Prime?
I have, yeah.
It seems to me like Jose if he had that sort of backing with, or that rapport with the Glazers like he does with Daniel Levy, or that at least it looks like he does have, that he could have taken them somewhere. Because the team that you guys finished second with, on paper, that team was not that good.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with that sentiment, or like do you watch him at Spurs and wish that it had been different? And I know you kind of just alluded to that a little bit, but like when you see the behind the scenes at Spurs, is that like how you wish it was there at United?
I would have liked to have seen him stay for longer, and I would have liked to have seen him backed. I think a lot of that Spurs documentary it honestly seems a lot like they know the cameras are on and they're playing towards it.
Sure.
I wouldn't imagine the relationship is as golden as it seems, but it definitely seems a lot better than it would have been at United. And I don't think that the United board gave him the respect that he deserved as a manager, because he's had Champions League with Benfica and
Porto.
Porto. There you go. Benfica. And he's won the Premier League God knows how many times, in his 2 times with the Chelsea. He's achieved so much in his career that he deserved the respect to be given a budget and allowed to sign the players that he wanted to sign and things like that. And we never gave him, or the board never gave him the respect to do so. So I wish that he'd have been backed, because we don't know how true they are, but there's reports out there that he wanted this player, this player, and that player, and they turned out to be incredible players, and he saw the potential in them. I think that I saw a report once saying that he wanted Van Dijk before Liverpool got him, and he wanted Fernandinho before Man City got him, and things like that. And whether that's true or not, I don't know. But I would have loved to have seen Jose get the respect he deserves and get an extra year or two to really prove himself, and to have that backing. But it didn't happen. I don't think that's going to happen for a manager ever. I'll be honest with you. Until the Glazers are gone, I think we're going to literally have this exact same cycle as Man United Football Club for years. And it's just going to be, I think Ollie gets sacked by Christmas. I think Pochettino comes in. He probably gets the club 4th this season. We'll probably get to the quarterfinals maybe of the Champions League. And then the year after, we'll bring in 2 PR signings, 2 players that are going to sell shirts that aren't necessary to the club and that won't improve the club. Then Poch will go out and get us, 14th, 12th in the Premier League by Christmas, get sacked, and we'll bring in the next Tom, Dick, and Harry. So, unfortunately, it's a never-ending cycle. It's so frustrating, but what can I do?
Do you think Jose can lead Spurs to Champions League, or maybe not obviously to the final, but into the top 4 and challenge for the Premier League maybe, and start, if he gets another year or 2? Do you think they have the squad to do that?
I would say I think they have. I think they have the squad, and I think Jose's got the quality as a manager. This season's going to be a weird one. It really is going to be a weird season, because, in my opinion, there's no outright winner of the Premier League right now.
No,
it could be anyone. It could literally be anyone. And I think Spurs definitely have a great chance. Harry Kane is on form that I've never seen him on before. He is a man possessed this season. And Heung-min Son is reaping the rewards of that. They've got Bale now, and they've got a solid squad. And they've got a squad way better than the squad that Poch got to the final of the Champions League a couple of years ago. So it's possible. I'd say that I would not write Spurs off to win the league or to go far in the Champions League. I do wonder when, I typically find with Mourinho, he has a crumble period of the season where he has about 4 or 5 games where he, the squad crumbles and his tactics crumble against teams you wouldn't expect it. I wouldn't be surprised, if in January, for example, they play, say, West Ham, Brighton, and Burnley and lose all 3 games. I think that just happens with Mourinho at times, and that could cost him 1st place or 3rd place in the Premier League. So I think we'll sort of see, but if they keep up this form, I don't see why not. You know, especially with how Harry Kane and Son are linking up top. I don't see why they can't win the league. I really, you know, they looked like they're on fire.
Yeah, and they're in. I think they're in the Europa League, so they wouldn't have that. But even in the Champions League, it's kind of up for grabs. It's like Madrid is in shambles a little bit, and Barcelona is in shambles with the whole Messi saga this summer, and it's looking. And I guess Bayern, you would say, is probably the favorite for that. But beyond them, I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, honestly, before tonight, I'd have told you Man United would have won the Champions League given our two wins in the Champions League. I have no idea. I mean, PSG are playing Leipzig right now. Actually, I wonder what the score is in that game. I'm going to quickly check that. It's 2-1 to Leipzig against PSG right now. That in itself, a team we beat 5-0 are beating PSG 2-0, which they looked absolutely shocking against us. They didn't. I don't think they had a solid attack that I thought they'd score from against Man United of all teams, and then they've gone in. They're being PSG. So,
is it late in the game?
It is. Yeah, it is. Let me quickly check. Oh, that's it. The game is over. They won 2-1. Leipzig beat PSG 2-1.
That's what. Do you watch Bundesliga much?
I don't watch it enough. I watched it. When it was the only league that opened back up.
Yeah.
Post UK lockdown, I watched a lot of it. I was scouting out Jadon Sancho because obviously we were going to sign him back then. But I don't watch it much. The difficult thing is it's never really on TV here, you know. Yeah. And I guess that's not an excuse because it's probably not on TV there either.
No, it's on ESPN Plus, and well, the Premier League isn't on TV here either. We have to get like Peacock streaming, and the US has done like the streaming services have basically put everything behind a paywall, which is really annoying. But ESPN Plus they have Serie A and Bundesliga and MLS. And so that's kind of what I went for. But then you have to go, CBS Sports has the Champions League games on, but they play it sort of like they just shift through all the games when highlights come. And it's not really the same as just sitting down and watching a match.
Yeah.
And then Premier League is behind another streaming service. And so I used to watch Premier League all the time, but this season I watched the highlights and that's kind of it. But Bundesliga, if you watch Leipzig play, like Upamecano, if like you watch him play, he's a quality center back. And he would be one that if I was you guys, I would be looking at signing.
I'd be honest with you, against us, I didn't think much of him. But I also think that it was more so a case of I just don't think that the tactics for Leipzig were right against us. But from what I've literally only watched him against us this season. I haven't watched another Leipzig game. He looks like a decent ball playing centre back. He seems to push up the pitch quite a bit.
He does.
So that he looks solid in that regard. I'd love to sign him. I would love to sign any good defender, any defender that has potential, that can play a decent. I honestly, I'm crying out for a defender right now. The fridge on wheels we have at the back. As much as I agree with what you said earlier in the fact that he shows pockets of talent, but we don't play how Leicester played when he was incredible at Leicester. He played so well there because Leicester played a defending line in their own penalty box. So Harry Maguire rarely ventured out, so he didn't have to track back anytime. Unfortunately, we play a high line, and if someone plays a ball through that high line, he is about as fast as I can't think of anything incredibly slow. He's just very slow, basically, and he can't get back quick enough. He can't beat anyone in a foot race. So unfortunately, it just doesn't work in our system. Someone like Upamecano would probably work well because he showed a lot of pace and he's got the same features in terms of having he's got a big frame and he's a ball playing centre back. So it probably would work really well in our system.
If you watch their game in the Champions League against PSG last year. Even though they lost, he played exceptionally well, and that was one of the games. So I watched him play in the Bundesliga often, but that was the game where I was like, he's solid. He'll be a really good signing for somebody. And I think based on how the Bundesliga is turning out this year, they're in first right now. And so if they go, I think he's got some sort of release clause that might be activated in January. But I feel like if they're in first or they have a shot to win the title, that they'll ask for so much money for him.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. So if you had to pick like a Champions League final and then a top four for the Premier League, who would it be?
Champions League final. That's a tough one. I would say Champions League final this year. I can see Man City potentially being in the. They shouldn't really be in the Champions League in general, should they? Given the fact that they almost missed out on it. But I can see Man City being, as much as it pains me to say that, I can see Man City or Liverpool being one of the finalists this year. And I think we could see a German team being the second finalist.
Mm-hmm.
Or I think it'd be either a German team or maybe an Italian team this year. Maybe Juve get there.
Mm-hmm.
They're under Pirlo now. That'd be interesting to see if Pirlo can bring it. Can bring out a Champions League final. They seem to be doing okay right now in the Serie A, so
yeah,
maybe, I don't know. For a top four Premier League as of right now, I'd have to say, Liverpool, Everton, Tottenham, and maybe Leicester. To be honest, it's such a weird league. I think we'll see some normality return soon. I think we'll see some really dominant City performances. I think we'll see Chelsea find some form. But until then, I can I'd be silly not to say that Everton could be in the top four this year, because they've only just lost their first game last week, and before then they were completely unbeaten. So it's a weird season this year.
They've looked really good. James has looked really good under Ancelotti, and he's signed him 3 times at 3 different clubs. So they clearly get on. I do have one more question for you. As far as like the rivalries, like United City or United Liverpool, they're often, like, you hear all the time about like the passion and the rivalry and the fans and everything. What is it like for you being in a sort of rivalry that gets as much attention as United City or United Liverpool? And like, well, one, have you been to one of the games in person? And two, what's like the difference in the atmosphere between like United Burnley or versus one of those games?
I've not been to a derby match before, or a rivalry game before. Been to a lot of games, but I wouldn't be able to adhere to what the atmosphere is like in one of those games. But I mean, the rivalries are very hostile anyway. I'd say, from being a content creator and being someone that's in more of the public eye than your average Joe, I get a lot of stick from rival fans, especially when Man United lose. So there's a lot of passion there, and there's a lot of animosity. But I think I would say it's probably similar to any other. I'd say passion-wise and intensity-wise, it's probably similar to any other rivalry. But because it's the rivalry of my club versus another club, it feels very personal to me. So it's something that I will see as a more, like, if a Liverpool fan was to call Man United terrible, I'd obviously I'd take that personally as a Man United fan. Whereas if a Spurs fan calls Arsenal terrible, I don't care.
Yeah.
But I have learned to try and put aside my footballing bias to save face a lot as well. Because the last thing I want to do is have a war with someone on Twitter about why United aren't, and why Liverpool are terrible and this, that, the other. So, but I also feel like I'm actually quite unbiased when it comes to footballing opinions. Like, I will praise Liverpool if, because they play good football, or I will praise City if they do well. It pains me to do it, but I will admit that Van Dijk is the best centre back in the world, or that Mane is almost as good as Rashford. So, like, I will be honest when it comes to it. It's football's just football, though, isn't it? Like, fans are passionate, fans are wild when it comes to football. So it's just something we all have to deal with, I think. And having grown up around football my whole life, it's just something I'm used to nowadays.
Yeah, definitely. It's something that we like in here. We only see it from afar, obviously on TV. But it looks from like, how cameras go into the pubs and stuff like during the game or whatever. Like it looks like it's a load of fun to be in there. I mean, well, when your team is winning, of course. But yeah, definitely something that I want to experience at some point, to travel either to the UK or Germany, maybe see like a Der Klassiker or something like that. Definitely something on the bucket list to do, obviously, once COVID goes away or whatever happens with that. But I lied. I did have one more question for you. So we were talking before about your different like collaborations with different YouTubers and that sort of thing. How do you go about with those collaborations now? Like I remember you were talking beforehand, you were like, oh, I just tweeted at Nepo to play Fortnite, or I just played with Tom in his stream one time. But now that you're kind of a little bit more established, is there a lot of scheduling that has to go into that, or do you kind of just like text so and so, be like, hey, do you want to film today, or how does that sort of work?
With clubs, I mean, I'm so it depends what the club is. If it's a squad builder showdown, for example, I talk to Andy every day. Like me and Andy play games together every day, or we just chat back and forth every day. So it will literally just be a case of Andy will just be like, yo, do you want to record tomorrow? I'll be like, yeah, sure, why not? We'll record in the afternoon or something. If it's something like 7-minute squads with Jack, he'll usually set a time. Like he'll be like, yo, can you record on Wednesday at like 9 a.m.? And every time he misses the time anyway, because he's, but he'll set a time. He'll set a day and a time. But it just depends on the club, really. It is quite chill. There's never really like a stress about it, or there's never really any kind of worry or like set schedule. It's kind of pretty chill. But yeah, like before it would be a case of I wouldn't get asked as much back at like a few years ago, because people didn't really know me. But now, as you do collabs and become friends with these people, it's kind of just, you're one of the people that they want to kind of record with. So they kind of just drop you a DM or a text or something. Hey, do you want to record tomorrow? Yeah, why not?
Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna put you on the spot. Do you have a favorite collab out of the main three that I know anyways? 7-minute squads, team takedown, or squad builder showdown?
I would say Squad Builder Showdown is probably my favorite to record, but 7-minute squad is my favorite to play because Jack's a really easy opponent. Jack is god awful at FIFA. He is terrible. So yeah, I'd say Squad Builder Showdown is definitely. I'd say it's the most fun to record because I think it's my favorite concept out of the three. But they're all fun, to be honest. I like them all.
Yeah, they're all fun to watch anyways. So if you guys are interested in watching those, we'll put those links to Haber's channel down in the description below. But I think this is a good place to wrap up. It's probably very late over there. Almost midnight, 11:30
It's about
midnight?
half 10 p.m.
I got my times wrong. But anyways, I really appreciate your time. I've had a lot of fun talking to you, and wish you the best with your YouTube and FIFA career.
I appreciate it, mate. It's been a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
Sounds good. Bye, everybody.